Howdy ladies and gentlemen, my name is Admin. Welcome to an update for the Moar Swords data pack. This update adds 5 new swords to the pack, but has been accompanied by another update which adds 5 more swords. That is early released for my patrons. Check out my Patreon page, there's an icard in the top right. But the 5 swords that we are going to be talking about in today's update are the Backstab Sword, the Egg Sword, the XP Star Sword, the Invisible Sword, and the Darkness Sword. As I have gone over how to craft these swords many times in the past, I will not be going over that in today's video. Just realize that you can find all of the recipes on our website, or if you are a patron supporter, they will show up in-game like so. To get started, we have the Backstab Sword. This is a sword that can be swung really quickly, but doesn't deal very much damage. In fact, it deals 3 damage, which is 1 lower than that of a wooden sword. However, while the base damage of the sword may not be very high, it does have a special effect, and that is that any hit from behind a mob will be a backstab, and that will deal massive critical damage. And of course, this encourages you to sneak up on your targets before going in for the kill. So you can sneak up on the mob and kill it. Trying this in survival mode though, you will see that most hostile mobs will always be facing towards you, so it will be pretty tricky to try to get behind them. It is possible, but it's not very likely for you to actually be able to use a sword on a hostile mob. But as I am sure that you are aware, players do not always face you, and so you could absolutely use this in a sneak attack in a PvP situation. Have this sword on you, sneak up on a player, and maybe hit them a couple times for the kill. Next up is a rather silly sword. This is the Egg Sword, and when you hit a mob or a player, it will spawn an egg, and it will like fall and spawn a chicken sometime. Yep. That's what this one does. I know it's not that useful or anything, but I added it to the game, and yeah, I don't know. It was fun to make. Sorry guys, I don't know what to tell you. The man in the chicken suit threatened me, so I kind of had to do it. So yeah, you're welcome. Speaking of swords where it is hard to see their use, we have the Invisible Sword, and yes, that pun was absolutely a stretch, but the Invisible Sword does not show up in third person, so when you swing it, it looks like you're punching. This means that all of the mobs in the world will not respect you or something. No. Obviously, an effect like this that is purely visual will not work on mobs because, well, they don't have a brain. However, while this is not exactly useful in a single-player world, you could totally use this to troll your friends, or people that used to consider themselves your friends before you trolled them. They will just be super confused at how your punches are dealing so much damage, and yeah, it is an iron sword, so you can enchant this with any enchantments that you want, and it can deal a decent amount of damage. Of course, iron swords are a little bit weaker than diamond or netherite, but they still can pack quite the punch. The XP Star Sword is the next one on our list. It is pretty much an upgraded XP sword. And for this one, whenever you hit a mob, it will drop double the XP of a regular XP sword. Of course, it has the same limitation in that you can only get 1 XP per mob. So it can definitely boost the output of like your XP farms in the world for like, say like your Enderman XP farm is going to run super fast, or your Pigman XP farm super fast, or even just like a spawner XP farm can work as a decent source of experience. But I mean, the recipe is pretty expensive. 6 XP diamonds, 2 stars, and I think I'll change this at some point to be an XP sword instead of a netherite sword. And finally, I decided to save the best sword for last, and that is the Darkness Sword. This one is pretty cool, more from a technical standpoint than anything. Don't get me wrong, this is still an epic sword from a gameplay perspective as well. This sword deals a massive 1 attack damage, and so it doesn't really hit that hard. Well, I mean, 1 attack damage is pretty much as low as it goes, but the reason why the damage is so low is actually due to the gimmick or mechanic or whatever you want to call it that this sword has. When dealing damage, damage is based on how dark of a location you are in. So currently, because I'm outside during the day, we are in light level 15. So the darker we get, the more damage the sword will do. It has a max damage of 10. That means if we fly down into a cave and give ourselves night vision so you can actually see things, you'll see my first attack is not going to deal any damage, but now the attack damage of the weapon has been set to 11. Sorry, I said 10 earlier, but the max damage is 11. So that is of course due to us being in a location with light level 0. So every light level above 0 will decrease the damage by 1. So light level 1 would be 10 damage, and so on. Pretty simple math, so I'm sure you guys can all do that in your head. But what's so cool about this is that this is actually my first sword that will change damage based on some sort of condition. All of the others deal like extra damage on a condition, but they don't change the actual damage stat. Those do not work with enchantments. However, this sword you could enchant, and your sharpness or whatever would multiply the attack damage of 11. Only drawback being that you would need to be in light level 0 in order to use it, so you wouldn't be able to see anything and mobs could be spawning everywhere. That said, this sword also works in PvP situations perfectly, where some of my other swords that I've made in the past have drawbacks due to just the limitations of the code that I wrote. But anyway, that is pretty much all of the time I have for today's video. Those were the 5 swords in the data pack, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like on it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you have yet to do so, and download the pack and play with it yourself. A lot of these swords are quite fun, and there are, I don't know, like 50 some of them? I think I'm approaching 52. So yeah, kind of insane. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the very next video. Thanks for watching.